Hello guys. So in this session, we will try to model a tiny cabin, which is part of the modeling challenge coming from Sketchfab. So I don't know at the time when you're gonna watch this video whether this challenge is still active. So you can always check back on models that have been produced by this challenge or try to participate yourselves. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to model the trees, and then we will model the cabin itself. Doing so, I will show you how to use many of the modeling tools from the edit mesh, mesh tools, and mesh menus. All right, so let's start with setting up the projects. The first thing you always want to do is to create a new project. So File, Project window, and I already created it as S02 cabin. You would click on New, and then you set your home directory to your project, right? So in this case, I'm going to just accept it because I'm in my project. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to save scene just in the beginning. And in this case, you have this little part in here called current project, which gives you the folders of your current project. And in here, I will find my scenes folder, and I save it as a tiny cabin. Save. Beautiful. Now, what we want to do now is to start modeling the cabin itself, right? What we do, we'll first model the surroundings, and in this case, it is the tree. We see that the tree is probably created from several different parts. So what we will do, we will create and model just the first bit, and then we'll stack the rest on top. We will use some precise measurements. So in this case, and some snapping, so that we will stack those parts on top of each other more precisely. So let's start with creating the first part of this tree. Okay, so we'll start with a cylinder, and we create it in any way. And what we'll do is we'll position it to the 0, 0, 0 of the space, and we set the dimension. So we say the dimension will be 1 meter, height will be 2 meters, and we need to decide the subdivisions. Right, pressing F key, it will frame you in all the viewports. And we need to decide how many subdivisions do we need, right? So we will need one of the subdivisions here to maintain the trunk of the tree. So we need one more in the cap. And then vertically, we will need at least at least one subdivision, because this will become the bottom part of the tree, and this will be pulled up. If you think that I know this magically, that is not true. I first tried to model this tree myself, and I'm just repeating my steps. So it was trial and error for several times, and this is the best possible configuration I came up with to start things easily for me. I'll show you how to add gradually the geometry during this tutorial as well. So if you don't get subdivisions right from the get-go, you're still okay. The one thing is that once you start modifying the shape, you will no longer be able to add the subdivisions. You will be, but it will genuinely mess up your whole object. So one thing I want to do still, if you look from the side of this, the model is here in the 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to just shift it up a little bit so that I will sit my model at the coordinate 0 of my space. So what I'll do here, I'll go to the cylinder and I'll translate it in the y-axis by 1 meter, putting it here, okay? So the next thing I'll do is I will make the trunk a bit smaller. So what I want to do, I'll go to the edge mode and I'll select this edge and then the bottom edge. And then in the top view, I will resize it to pretty much the size of the trunk that I want it to have, which this would be about correct, maybe even smaller. All right, so that's good. Next thing that I want to do is to create a shape of the tree. So if I look at it, I want the shape to be, you know, like going gradually down. So down with the inner part going up. So creating like a branches going in both directions. So what I'll do is I'll select it from the side here, and I'll select this time this this edge, and in here I'm going to I'm going to make it bigger slightly, and then moving it downwards. Okay, so I'll pretty much move it to the 0, 0, 0 coordinate, and then this other edge, which was here. Oh, come on, mouse. I'll move it upwards, right? So I'll create this internal bit. And now also what I want to do here is I want to resize these rings to this pretty much size of the trunk, right? So what I'll do here is I will start resizing it to the size of the trunk. There we go. Look at that. Okay, so that's good, and it can go a little bit higher, I would say. And then the top part as well, I can make it about the size of the trunk. Shoop, can be slightly bigger, but should be about the size of the trunk. Definitely not smaller, because I can have some problems afterwards. The next thing that I want to do is I want to create individual branches of this part. So what I'll do here is I will go to the vertex mode and start modifying the individual vertices. I'm going to help myself here a little bit, and I'm going to turn on the symmetry so I do stuff a bit quicker. So I turn it by the X, for example, turn it off, and so that when I change my things, I can change it gradually. So there we go, and I'm just going to make this a bit bigger at this moment so that I can move it more quickly. Try not to be super symmetric so that the tree looks a bit better. You know, so try to add a little bit of randomness in there so that not all the branches are the same. Awesome. And now this last one about tiny here. There we go. So going back to the view, look at that. We already have a pretty good looking part. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to take these individual these endpoints and shift them up. All right, I'll take them and then I'll shift them up a bit to create my trunk. There we go. So this goes upwards a bit. This looks pretty good. So now when I rotate my view, it's starting to look pretty good, right? So now the last thing that I need to do is somehow add the curvature of my branches. And currently it is a bit high. So what I'll do here is I'll take this down a notch. So I'll actually make this a bit smaller. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And now what I'll do is I'll start adding the curvature. So I'm going to make it like this, right? So how do I do that, right? I don't have any subdivisions here now. So instead what I'll do is I'll start adding something called the edge loops, right? So I'll go into the edit mesh, mesh tools, and I'll do an insert edge loop. Here you are. You can insert edge loop always by clicking on a specific edge, and it will try to add the perpendicular edge loop. So if I would edit here, it would add edge loop like here. If I would edit here, it adds edge loop like this, right? So I don't want this one. And let's add couple. If you would go into a insert edge loop, you can actually specify how many edges do you want to do. So in the save and have this distributed evenly, I can do number 3 here. And then if I undo this, and I keep number 3 here, clicking here, it will actually add the 3 edges in my edge loop, right? And I probably want to add edge loops from both because I also want to add curvature to the bottom bit as well. So what I'll do, I'll add about 2 edge loops here from the bottom part as well. There we go. So now I'm pretty happy. And actually, if you notice, let me actually do this in gradually. So what I'll do now is I'll start creating the curvature. So what I'll do, I'll go to my select tool, and now I'll start modifying the edges. So what I'll do here is I'll go and move it down, and you can see that I'm getting these weird shadows in here, right? In Maya, generally in any 3D editing tool, in general 3D, all faces are one-sided. That means that you can see any face just from one side. So for example, from this side, if you'd be looking from inside out, you wouldn't see it. And Maya displays you the visibility by painting faces either gray or black. And you can see that suddenly I'm getting this weird disappearing thing here. Right? So if I would render this, and I go to my hardware renderer, you can see that these faces are disappearing. That is because the geometry, the way it's constructed now, it has problems deciding the normals, that is the vector telling you which face is the forward facing. So we'll need to add some extra geometry there. But let's, for now, I'll show you in a second how. So what I can do now is to scale this a bit as well. So we scale this, and I'm getting some weird things here, right? You can see that it's not scaling. If you look here, it's not scaling how I wanted it, right? And why is that? Well, it's simple. The reason is quite simple. It's because I still have my symmetry on, and I don't want to have my symmetry on, right? I want a symmetry off. So when I scale this, it's scaled proportionally, right? So with my symmetry off, I go to a top view, and I can now select my edge and scale it proportionally. There we go. You saw I had to deselect because some tool was still kicking into place. And now this edge and the same thing, right? There we go. So I'm starting to get my nice curvature of the thing. So I'm going to just bring this edge down a bit. There we go. It's starting to look pretty good. And like I said, I'm going to handle this disappearing thing, and that's exactly by inserting several edge loops there down there, right? So going to edit mesh, mesh tools, insert edge loop, and I'm going to add several of them up in here. So boom, and you can see that that black shadow has disappeared because now there is enough geometry for Maya to decide where the thing should go. So what I'll do now is I'll actually create a couple. Oops, I'll just add a couple. I'll select this edge, and I'll move it up a bit. Create a little bit of curvature down there as well. And then this edge, move it up a bit. There we go. And I'm getting these beautiful looking leaves. Okay, so now, there we go. So this is looking pretty good. What we can do now is actually, I'm going to bring this down a bit, just a little bit. Awesome. And I'm going to take this bottom part up a bit. I'm just going to go to the vertex mode. And sorry, goes up a bit. There we go. So I think this is looking pretty good, right? As one part of the tree. And what I can do now is I can start stacking this up, right? So I'll actually move this down bit even higher. I'll stack it all the way to here. And let's start stacking this up, right? So what I'll do now is I'll go to the object mode, and I'll duplicate this, and I'll move it upwards, right? I'll move it upwards, and however you decide to stack it, it's fine, right? And I'm going from the side view, which is good. I'm just going to scale it a little bit, right? So I want to make it slightly smaller, and from the top view, slightly smaller like this as well. So like this and like this. And I'll also rotate it a bit, right? Great. So our tree is starting to shape up. So let's add a couple of these things. 1, 2, 3, and let's just add the last one here. Of course, you should be also removing the the number of branches, so you should probably do at least 2 or 3 different configurations, but we don't have time for this. So let's just add these 4, which is fine. And now we'll just start doing this one by one, right? So we're gonna do scale. I just did it so we're not wasting time. So this is gonna be gradual, right? So scale like this, scale like this, scale like this, and rotate. Now the last 2. This one and, oh, come on. And this one, scale like this, scale like this. I'm going smaller and rotate. There we go. What's happening here? Oh yeah, sorry, I have actually 2 of them here. And now we just need to do the tip of the tree. This one is actually redundant there. I did too many duplicates. So let's just move this one down a bit. There we go. And we need just the top bit. This one can go down. Just need to make sure that everything is nicely connected. Yeah, it looks good from this part. And I'm just gonna scale this last bit here. Tiny. I'm gonna make it a bit pointier this time. I'm gonna move it up. Good. Rotate. And what I'll do is I'll go to the tip of the tree, go to the vertex mode, select the pixels, all the vertices here, and I'll go to scale mode and I'll scale it to a nice tip, right? And one thing that probably needs a little bit more adjusting is that in order to make a nicer curvature, is to scale this a bit as well, and this a bit as well. You always need to be mindful from which part you are scaling, right? But I can say that we created a pretty good looking tree. What we can still play with a little bit in order to reduce the, the making it look too symmetric, is we can move the individual branches up and down a bit. So let's just do that really fast. So I'm gonna go here. I'm going to select mode and select and vertices. Actually, let's first, what we'll do is we'll select all of this, going in object mode, select all of these objects, and then we'll go into mesh, booleans, union. And what this does is this creates a perfect unified model, right? We do not do combine because we actually want to create the geometry from the whole model, which is good. You can see how it's nicely combined. And now if we'll go into the vertex mode, we can actually start modifying the individual pixels. So we go from the side view, and then we'll just go and go crazy here a little bit. This one goes up, and let's actually again turn on the symmetry here. Oops, so I'm gonna undo this and double click symmetry, object X, and so this will allow me, although I said let's not try to be too symmetrical, this will give me a bit better idea on up, so I can go down and so on, right? You can do it also from the side view as well, down, down. All right, and then the individual ones, you can move them up, down a little bit so that you know what you're doing. up. This one can go up a bit with this one as well, and so on. Right. You can, make it look even nicer if you want to. One thing that is missing now is the trunk of the tree. So let's just finish that. So I'll go back to the edge mode. And this trunk, I want to just make it bigger. So I'm going to extrude this face. So mesh, extrude, and I'm just going to pull it out. Oops, that I did not want to do. Actually, you know what? I'm going to select the faces here. So I'm going to select all these all these faces. It's not just the face, but I'm going to select all these faces and I'm going to extrude those. All right, so mesh tools, extrude. And now if I pull them down, I should be getting the nice trunk. Okay. There we go. So going from the side, I just need it to be a bit bigger than the bottom branches. Okay, good. So what can happen during the extrusion is that they will be displayed in black. So that means that your faces are invisible, that they are inside out. So what you can do here is in the mesh display, you have a possibility to reverse the faces, right? So if I would select those faces up in here, imagine that they appear like this. Mesh display, reverse, they can be like this. You can just do exactly the same thing that when you select your faces and you do reverse. All right, so in the next tutorial, we're going to model the cabin, and then we will jump to a little bit of texturing. Thank you.